we'll be talking about career in foreign languages. We have with us Miss Stuti and Miss Sowjanya. So why don't you guys introduce yourself first in English language and then in the language that you've learned?
My name is Stuti. Currently, I teach French at Alliance Française de Chandigarh. And well, I've been learning French now for 8 years. I say learning because, it's a continuous process, it never stops. I did my French from Alliance Française itself. I also have a master's in mass communication. And well, I've taught in France as well for a couple of years. Bonjour, je m'appelle Stuti, je suis professeur de français langue étrangère à l'Alliance française de Chandigarh. Maintenant, ça fait presque 8 ans que j'apprends le français et voilà, j'ai aussi un master en communication de masse et journalisme. Merci, thank you.
Wow. That's the difference between learning 2 levels versus learning 8 levels and teaching French now.
French sounds so fancy.
Yeah. Okay, you go ahead, Sowjanya.
Right. Hello, everyone. Thanks, Bhumika, for the introduction. My name is Sowjanya Santhanam. I'm a Korean language expert. I do translation and interpretation here in Bombay. I hold a master's degree in English literature, and post which I've also gone and studied Korean language from Yonsei University in Seoul, South Korea, for 2 years approximately. And also recently in 2009, I went to another university in Korea called Sungkyunkwan University. And I was working there as a literature researcher kind of thing. And I've recently returned and yeah, I'm working. 네, 안녕하세요, 여러분. 뭄바이에 살고 있는 한영 번역가 서전야라고 합니다. 만나서 반갑고요. 일단 오늘 이렇게 저를 제 기회를 여러분들과 나눌 기회를 주신 메라키에게 감사드리고 싶고요. 그리고 오늘 우리가 할 대화의 내용이 여러분 모두들에게 도움이 되었으면 좋겠습니다. 네, 잘 부탁드립니다.
Welcome, you guys. I think the K drama fans are going to go gaga over it. Okay, I'll try. Stuti, do you think I should try?
Yeah, go ahead, why not?
Okay.
Well, you were at the top of our class, so.
Be ready to judge me. Be ready to get all traumatized now. Okay, so bonjour. Bonjour. Je m'appelle Bhumika Futela. Je parle 4 langues, hindi, anglais, punjabi et upper français. Je suis coach de carrière. Je te dé, am I going right? Je te dé la psychology. I don't think I should go beyond this. I hope this was right.
Yeah, perfect, almost perfect.
Hang on. All right. So let's begin with a little candid conversation and a Q&A session. So please tell us why did you pick up these languages in the first place? Like what was your idea? Saujanya, what made you pick up Korean in the first place and no other language?
Right. So for me, initially it started as a hobby, and when I was in high school, I think like most K-pop fans these days, it started around then for me. But around a decade ago, the scene was quite different. So it was just like I happened to hear a song in passing, and I just started learning it. But along the way, I just became really interested in the language and very invested in it, and decided to pursue it full time once I'd completed my undergraduate degree. And I too had to approach career counselors and other people who had experience in the field to get an idea of if I could actually go ahead with this. And yeah, it's around, I would say, 2013, I started studying Korean professionally from proper classes and everything full time.
Great, great. And Suti, what made you take up French in the first place?
Okay, well, for me, it was just that I wanted to learn a foreign language, and the Alliance Française was right next to our college. And we went in, and we just talked to the person, and he just said a few words in French: Bonjour, bienvenue, merci beaucoup. And I was like, what a nice language. I want to learn it. So that's how we started. And well, it just, started from there. I just wanted to learn more. So I went up to B2, which is level 8. And I applied for a job in France, for a teaching assistant job in France, and I got selected. And I went to France. I loved it. I enjoyed teaching as well, though I have a degree in journalism. But then I enjoyed teaching that much. So I came back and I just wanted to do something, with French and with teaching. So I took up teaching French as a foreign language. So it was really spontaneous for me. And now I have started up a level C1, 10 levels of French from Alliance Française. So yeah, that's how it is.
Okay. And what made you guys pick up a career in foreign language, and no, why not any other career? Why not, since you pursued mass communication, you also pursued English literature. So uh, we could have actually looked at other career options as well. But why particularly a career in foreign language?
So for me, it was mostly the love for a language that, gradually developed over time. And also it's something very different. Like, I got the opportunity to move to another country, experience another culture, learn so much, and again come back and really give back to people in a way that by sharing that culture, sharing new things. So I think that is really it really makes you happy. It gives you a sense of satisfaction in that way. And also I think it's the whole aspect of discovery that comes with a foreign language, which is not present in a lot many career options.
Agree. Could you go tell us more about it? Like, as you just mentioned discovery about yourself. So could you tell more about it? That how does it lead to self discovery bit?
Well, they say when you speak two languages, you are two different versions of yourself in those two languages. So, you find a new way of expressing yourself on a very personal level. It's a new way of expressing yourself. And of course, a new language is a different way of looking at the world, because culturally, the perceptions are different, everything is different. And well, when I went to France, I can give you one example. I went to a party, and it was a birthday party, and people were giving gifts. And in India, we just take a gift, thank you, look at it later when everybody's left. In France, they open it there and then.
Wow.
So that is one example which is really different in the French culture, and there are many more, of course.
Yeah, well, that's different than in India. We always want to open the gift there and then. So at least they're pretty upfront about it, unlike us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So Sowjanya, why don't you tell us about, your inclination towards career in foreign language?
Right. So for me, like I said, I finished my undergraduate degree and I did my undergraduate in business administration. So ideally, my family and everyone would have wanted for me to pursue MBA, but it was around then that I figured that business is not my thing and I do not have any kind of affinity towards it. Whereas I've just always had a thing for languages since I was in school. So I just made the decision that I'm going to switch entirely towards linguistics and languages. So I also chose to do my master's in English literature because I thought it would be helpful while applying as a translator. I just thought, that would be like appreciated in most fields. So that was also part of the reason I did MA English. And I began to see that I just realized for myself that I was good at it. And I wanted to capitalize on that. I mean, why not make a career out of something that I've always been interested in, that I always seem to get drawn to no matter what else I try to do. And it was around then. Also, at that time, I was in Chennai, and Chennai has one of the Korean consulates as well. So I happened to get in touch with a lot of people. I also studied Japanese for 2 years, but of the two, I realized I still could pick Korean up better. So I decided to stick with it, and I met a couple of people from the the Korean consulate, and got some career advice on what I could do with the language and stuff. And I thought, okay, this definitely has some potential, and I could definitely do this. And actually, Stuti explained it really well about how you learn two languages, and you develop another side of you. You get to broaden your perspectives, and you get to learn so much. You meet new people, and just have experiences that you never thought you could have had any other way. And it's just such a wonderful feeling. And for me personally, it gave me so much joy and so much satisfaction that I really think everyone should at least have the opportunity to learn a foreign language and experience for themselves just the kind of joy it gives, and what there's so much you could do with it, and you will find parts of you that you didn't know existed.
That's new and like a very beautiful idea though. But like, weren't your families concerned about you picking up a very unconventional career path? As you also rightly mentioned that you chose like you begin with your bachelor's in business administration, and of course the jobs post that pays well, and there are ample career opportunities post that. So what was your family's reaction around it, and when did they actually start getting comfortable with you picking up an unconventional career?
In my case, uh, definitely, right, like sticking to like doing an MBA, and that's the safe option in India. You would have gotten through anywhere. And ideally, if I felt like I wasn't, I don't know, ironically, I felt like I wasn't brave enough to stick to the safe option. I didn't feel like I could do well in it. um, and my parents always knew that I liked learning Korean, so but they just kind of passed it off as like, oh, it's just something she does like on the side. But it's only when I started insisting that, no, you don't understand, I have to go study this language. I want to learn from professionals. I want to live in the country, learn from Korean people. I don't want to learn online anymore. It's not working for me. And they were terrified. um, they were they were just so lost. They were so agitated. I got all kinds of reactions. And also, hilariously, just I say Korea, and not many people know Korea. I definitely don't expect my parents or the previous generation to know about the country that much, but like K-pop is huge now, but that's different. So when I said Korea, they immediately assumed North Korea.
Yeah.
So I had relatives calling up. So I grew up in Qatar, um, and my family, like, we're still there. But I had relatives calling from India and trying to convince my parents to not send me to Korea. They were like, no, she's going to North Korea. It's not safe. And what is it going to be like? And Kim Jong Un. And they were just so paranoid. And but the thing is, I'd made up my mind. So what it took for me to convince them and for them to get comfortable is a lot of research from my side.
Yeah.
Just extensive research about, first of all, geography, and explain to them that they're different, culturally different, and there's just Korea's a lot more South Korea is a lot more advanced, and not at all like what we see on the news. That's not what it is. That I know people who live there, and the life there is completely different. And I had to present them with like a list of universities and the kind of course I would be doing, and also give them the career options I could pursue. I literally had to make like a flow chart, and like I had to give them details, financial details, fees, my accommodation, which they were obviously very concerned about, like where would she stay, what did she do, what did she eat. Also, I'm vegetarian, and Korea is largely non-vegetarian, so they were like, what will she eat? Oh my god, they eat snakes and cockroaches. And I said, no, again, let's just bust all the myths and misconceptions. So yeah, it required a lot of research, a lot of talking to, and they were comfortable only when I actually went to Korea and I started scoring well on my exams. And they started seeing that I'm with my teachers and my students and I'm doing well academically. So they were like, oh, okay. And then they could comfortably tell my other relatives as well, she's good, she's fine, she's doing well for you, well for herself, y'all can relax. So yeah, it took a lot of convincing, honestly.
That's a great way to go about it, because again, like, a lot of students will come in day in day out, and they would ask in the first place that, we know that we are opting out for something which is a little different from the usual. So how do we go about convincing? And that's the first thing that I would also tell them, that first do your own research, be confident. Once you are confident about what you're picking up, then it gets easier for you to also convince. And I think you took a very great approach, and it seems to be working pretty well. Also, yes, we hear so much about North Korea, which we know is, there's stark difference between North and Southern Korea. So, plus we've also heard that Southern Korea is like even more happening a place, which actually we don't know about. I'm sure you must be knowing better about it. So, is that the case? Like South Korea is comparatively like more happening and more chiller place?
Definitely, South Korea is nothing like North Korea. There's also there's the border, right? DMZ, demilitarized zone, which separates the two countries. And North Korea, they definitely, I mean, the people there, they there's just so much lack of everything. South Korea is nothing like it. It's almost like a movie. They're so close by, but nothing has transferred from one country to the other, you know. It's insane. Their script is the same, but they have entirely different dialects. Often I've heard South Koreans say that they do not understand North Koreans when they speak in Korean. It's the same language. um, but yeah, South Korea is definitely more chill, more relaxed. Another thing my parents were concerned about is that we happened to be on a holiday and we met with a Korean person while we were there, and my dad mentioned, oh, my daughter's going to Korea to study, and is there anything we should be worried about? And the Korean person said, oh, as long as um, she controls her alcohol levels, she'll be fine.
Yeah.
Because South Korea is known, you know, for like that heavy consumption of alcohol. In fact, the heaviest consumption of alcohol in the world is in South Korea. So my parents were just like, oh my God, she's going to go there, she's going to become a drunkard, and what's going to happen to our daughter and family values. It was hilarious. But generally, South Korea is a lot more chill. There's news of North Korea attempting to bomb South Korea every day, and South Koreans are not bothered by it because for them it's like, this is, they just say it, but they don't do it. So they're unaffected. I would say South Korea is completely safe to go. In the last 5 years or so, the influx of foreigners coming to study Korean in South Korea has been huge. South Koreans themselves, I mean, even though it being a homogenous society, they're not used to foreigners being in their vicinity, you know. They used to tend to stare at you if they're just not used to seeing someone else, you know, from some other country. But now they're a lot more used to it. They're chill about it because there are foreigners everywhere. Most of them are students. So I would say it's 100% safe to go study there. It's relaxed. It's a great place to be in.
Amazing. So interesting. Stuti, what about you? How was your family's? How did your family take it? What was your experience in Europe? I think one thing that is actually going along with foreign language is a lot of traveling that is also coming along. So we'll touch upon this point later because this generation is a little crazy, a little more crazy about traveling bit. So we will also touch upon this point later. Go ahead, Stuti. What was your family's take on this, and how well did they accepted the whole idea of you pursuing foreign language?
Okay, so for me, I could say it was the opposite of what, Sowjanya had to do to convince their family. My family was pretty supportive because French was something I was doing on the side. So early on, they let me do it. They were really supportive with it because they didn't think, it could be a career in itself. So it was just a hobby. So it went well. And well, when I got the job in France, they were like, are you sure they're inviting you to France to work? Like, why would they do that? But well, after the initial apprehension, about a different culture, a different tradition, things like racism, perhaps, which we hear a lot about these days, they were like, okay, really, if you want to go, you can go, because it was really well laid out in a way. I had a contract, I had a place to stay. So, there weren't a lot of things to worry about in that way because it was very well laid out. So, well, they were very supportive with that. And I feel very lucky because, as Sowjanya said, parents need a lot of convincing usually to let your child go to a different country, especially for someone like me who had never been to a foreign country. And even nobody in my family had settled abroad or gone abroad for such a long period of time. So, well, but it went pretty well. They were very supportive, which made things easier for me. I think also the thing that comes into play here is that Europe, people know Europe, they know France, they know how things go. There aren't a lot many misconceptions. So I think that was something that helped me in a way, and not many people had anything bad to say about it. Of course, there were things like, oh, it's a very different culture. What if you drink too much red wine? Or, what
Yeah.
if you want to stay out till whatever time and things like that? The general things parents are a bit worried about. But then nothing major, nothing that would make them really stop me from doing that.
Right, right, right. So again, it's a very interesting story that's coming from the both of you. So we've had the similar kind of sessions with people in marketing, CA, people in psychology, but I think this is going in a very interesting and a very different direction somehow. This particular session. Okay, and like now that we're talking about career opportunities, we're talking about foreign language. The one and foremost insecurity that comes into the picture is that we don't know what job opportunities are there, and all we know it's just teaching, which I personally feel is that it's a very different kind of teaching involved when we're talking about foreign languages. So, what are the other career options that one can look at? And both in India, outside India, how easy it is for one to get into either of the places. So, Saujanya, could you please tell us more about the other job opportunities?
Yes. So in my case, as soon as I was done with my course in Korea, I started job hunting. I returned to Qatar, to my parents' place, and started job hunting almost immediately, because I was also in a way eager to show them that, hey, now that I've done this very, very expensive course abroad, I want to prove to you that I'm perfectly capable of getting employed. Um, and the thing is, it surprisingly wasn't that hard. There were tons of job opportunities in India for Korean, and especially in all the major cities. Like I mentioned, the embassies there in Delhi, Bombay, and Chennai, and also there are a lot of job opportunities for Korean in the Delhi, Noida, Gurgaon belt, because majority of the Korean companies headquarters in India are set up in that belt. Also in Chennai, and also in Pune actually. So it wasn't that hard. So the other opportunities that are available is, it might sound like BPOs actually. It might sound like, oh, it's just a BPO, like, do I have to go there? But the thing is, BPOs that hire foreign language experts pay really well. So you might think, oh, it's a call center job, it's monotonous, I'll be sitting in one place, and it might not sound fancy to tell people that, oh, I work at a BPO, but the pay is actually great. They really value it. Most of them are trying to reach um, Korean customers, so they need a language expert. They have no other way of doing it by themselves. Google Translate. I, for a fact, know that the company I worked at tried using translating tools and reaching out to their clients, but it did not go well for them at all, and that market just remained like stagnant, until they got a foreign language expert on board. So they had a separate team for Chinese language experts, um, French language experts as well, and also for Korean, and also a couple of people for Japanese. So that's just one way that BPOs are trying to like tap into the Southeast Asian market. So there's definitely a lot of scope over there. Um, I often see a lot of offers happening, coming through from Hyderabad as well for similar BPOs and other corporates that are looking to expand in the Southeast Asian market. So that definitely. Secondly, I would say the embassies. The embassies themselves are always looking to recruit for people who can kind of help them, uh, help people get more interested in their countries. So they always want people to come and reach out to them and get more interested in traveling to Korea, studying in Korea and such. So they want someone to be more involved culturally, and also when they have delegates and expats coming from Korea to India, they need a translator, so they will hire you on a freelancing basis. But that also pays really well and pays you by the hour. And if you're really good at what you do, you get called for it really frequently. You will be the go-to person for it. um, and now that everything's happening online, right, you don't even need to be in that particular city around that particular embassy to do this. You can do all the translation online, so there's definitely a lot of scope there. And of course, teaching. As far as I know, there are about 3 to 4 reputed universities in India that teach Korean, and a lot of people I know go to those universities, have graduated from those universities, so you can definitely teach as well. It's always available. But whatever it is that you choose to do, you should realize that the options are there, but you should know what you need to put your focus on and specialize in. In my case, I cannot go to teaching because I do not have any kind of degree in teaching. um, so I can maybe take tutoring classes, but I wouldn't be qualified to teach at an institute. But the options are definitely there, the career options for Korean.
Okay. And in the rest of the cases, like in terms of embassy and in terms of one going to an MNC or a BPO, in that case, you don't need any particular degree. Like as you said, for teaching, you need a particular degree. What about the other cases?
In those cases, what they tend to look at, in my case, it helped that I had, you mean the other, like the master's degree and all? No, they don't care about it, but they want to know if you've studied Korean extensively. They look for a minimum of 3 to 4 years of experience in translating and interpreting. And also there is an exam called the TOPIC exam, which is the test of proficiency in Korea, which is globally recognized. So most MNCs in India seem to know of it. Definitely, they're aware of it. So when they're seeking out for candidates, they always mention that, oh, you need to be TOPIC level 4 or above, and you're asked to present your TOPIC certificates. So they're definitely aware. And no, you don't need any other additional degrees except for showing how you are qualified in the language itself and what experience you have in it.
Right, right. And Survi, sorry, Stuti, could you please tell us about your experience? Like as we were discussing that it's different from how teaching culture goes around in India, and that's why a lot of people are scared, to even enter in foreign language because of the fact that they don't like the fact that how teaching goes around in a few schools. So, what is your take on that? Do you think that it's different? Do you think that it involves something just beyond taking classes on a theoretical level? So, what is your experience been?
Okay. Teaching and learning a foreign language is quite different than what we're used to. For example, we tend to think of English as a foreign language and how we've learned it. But I think first of all, we need to be aware that English in India is not a foreign language, right? It is one of our first languages for most of us. So foreign language teaching and the methodology is completely different. The way you approach the subject is really different. You go with vocabulary, you see the structures, so everything is very well planned. Nothing is haphazard, right? So that is how foreign language teaching and learning is different. So I don't think we can really compare it to how we learn languages in schools usually, right? And also, I think there's a lot of onus on the student when you're learning a foreign language. You have to be really eager to learn the language, first of all, and you have to be really accepting in a way that a new language means new structures, new syntax, new vocabulary, and you accept that. You can't really question, are english mein aisa hota hai, so why is it like this in Korean, or why is it like this in French? You just accept some things. So I think that's one thing that one really needs to have in your mind, that yes, it's a new language, and that is how it is, and I accept it, right?
Mm,
And also each language has its grammar, its syntax. It's quite mathematical in a way, so it's well laid out. So you need to keep that in mind as well. You
mm,
can't let go of either of these things. And
yeah.
of course, if you can watch movies, listen to songs, watch shows, that really helps. Even if you don't understand everything the first time, it's okay. Just you get used to the accents, the sounds, and everything.
Mm, mm. Also, when we used to see teachers teaching one kind of subject, how is like teaching a foreign language was different. Like as a student now I can tell that, even though I haven't gotten like very deep into it, but it was about exploring culture. It was about tasting food, tasting wine, tasting cheese, and we used to have lunches. So it was like a very fulfilling thing, something that you could enjoy. And even I know one of my friends who have pursued Korean as well. So she used to go to Korean Culture Center, and it was like something she would look forward to. So that's how I think teaching in foreign language also becomes very interesting, because you're not just talking about just the grammar or just the vocabulary or just the sentences or whatever. But it also goes beyond that. Okay, let's discover yourself, let's understand about the culture, let's understand about the food. So I think that's the beauty of it, and that's why it doesn't become boring.
Yeah, definitely. Because, for example, to teach some vocabulary,
Hmm.
there are cultural concepts which we take from France, perhaps, things that we see differently in India or things that exist differently in India. So we take those things and, incorporate them with the vocabulary, with the grammar. So it becomes a whole, a complete whole in itself,
Hmm.
because you can't just throw grammar at people, you can't just throw vocabulary at people. You have to have a context, and well, that also gives the cultural context. So yeah.
Agree. So, Stuti, could you please tell us about the different qualifications and courses that one should do in order to, excel or thrive in the field? Or do you think that just a course in foreign language can be ample?
Well, I think the first thing one needs to do is get the official certification, whatever it may be, for the respective language. For example, in French, we have the DELF and the DALF certifications. So, you have A1, A2, B1, B2. So, first, I think the first thing you need to do is either have DELF or DALF for French, and it might be different, of course, for other languages, or you need to have a master's or some kind of degree, which really can certify your level in the language,
Hmm.
right? So I, for example, don't have a master's in French, but then I have the required level of DELF for my job, or DALF, right? Also, I think that suffices for most of the, you know, jobs, until and unless you are you want to pursue teaching like in a university, or you want to go for translation interpretation. Yes, there are specific courses as well that you can go for, but then I think for most people, foreign languages, they are an added asset. Example, you have an MBA, German, you can go to Germany, you can go to Austria, you can go to Switzerland, so I think for that purpose, having a certification suffices.
Right, right. Okay. And like, you pursued mass comm, Sowjanya pursued a degree in business. So, do you think that, pursuing an English literature course is a kind of a mandate thing, or one don't need it? Because you also pursued English literature course, so did Sowjanya as well, like after and before the other courses. Is it like a mandate thing or not really?
No, no, not really. I think for me, the reason is I would like to continue teaching in France, perhaps.
Okay.
And, it's a requirement for that to have a master's. But otherwise, no, not at all. It's not important.
Right. Right.
until and unless you have the, you know, the level of certification of language that's required, I think it's all good.
Mm,
And well, if you're aiming to go to a foreign country,
mm,
that suffices. You have the degree, you have your professional degree in whichever field you want, and you have a certification in the other language. That
mm,
suffices, because ultimately the foreign language would just help you to integrate better, with your work environment socially. So I
mm,
think that's the purpose, and that is solved with the certification.
Right, right. And Sowjanya, like in your case, had you not had English literature or a degree in business, do you think had it made any difference to the career path that you're pursuing currently or the job opportunities that you have currently?
In my case, I'll tell you how both the degrees were useful or actually made like any kind of sense. When I had to apply for my course to Korea, the university there required that I already have some kind of degree. So for that application, even though I applied for it post my master's, for that application, I gave my undergraduate degrees credentials. Um, and that was enough. Like I got through, but it was mandatory in that university that I have a degree before applying. So that was that. So I would say do some kind of undergraduate degree if you're planning to go abroad and study a foreign language. But I also happen to have a lot of friends who've studied Korean and Mandarin as well, who've finished high school and gone straight into studying the language. Um, so for them it was not a thing. But that again was in India. Those students all study the language in India, so it was fine. But I believe if you want to go abroad, they required you to have some kind of prior degree. The English literature, um, I wouldn't say it was particularly useful or it played a huge role in terms of my job or what I do. What it has helped in is that when I apply for a job and I'm trying to like level up in my career, or I'm applying to a new organization, when they see my list of qualifications and they see that I have a master's degree, I now have the capacity definitely to ask for, like, the kind of package I want.
So it's an edge in.
So yeah, so but that's again in India, right? In India, they will always see how much has a person studied rather than the quality of education that someone's had.
Mm,
um, so in that way, I know for a fact that I've been picked over maybe some other candidates simply because I have a master's degree and I have like studied extensively.
mm,
But if you ask me like, oh, is it absolutely necessary to have like a master's in English literature for
mm,
translating in Korean? Absolutely not.
mm,
It is not required at all. What definitely matters is how much of Korean you've studied and how proficient you are in the language itself, and what certifications have you taken in the language that's recognized by these companies.
right, right. So, all in all, one thing that has to be constant is the certification that you're taking and the number of levels that you're completing. Anything and everything besides that depends on what kind of place do you want to get into, what kind of career you want to get into, right? So if it is teaching, it changes according to it. If it is a job in MNC or a job in embassy, changes accordingly, right? And did you guys get a chance to settle in abroad, like for you Korea and for Stuti you in France? So was there a chance of settlement, and if there was, did you plan to choose it or not?
In my case, I did actually move to France for a couple of years, because I had a job, I had accommodation, it was fun, of course. So well, I was there for a couple of years, but then I personally felt that I had learned everything I could from that particular job. So that's why I decided to come back, move forward, and well, that's why I'm here, because otherwise it would have been possible for me to stay in the same job perhaps, but I did not want to do that.
Okay,
So it's really about what you want. If
right.
you want to stay back, it's possible. You could have looked for jobs as well,
Mm.
but then I decided to come back.
Mm.
And yeah, otherwise it's just that, to stay back in a country, you have to have something. Either you pursue a degree or you have a job. Otherwise, I don't think it's really beneficial or it serves anything that you just stay back for the sake of it, because
Okay.
people do that at times, that we'll stay back, we'll see what comes up, but I think you need to have a purpose to stay back.
Yeah, but if I were
Yeah.
to ask that, are there any settlement opportunities? Because a few students go with the perspective that they have to settle in there only. So, is there a thing like a work visa existing in these two countries in specific?
In in France, yes, definitely it does exist, and there are a lot of Indian students. There are a lot of scholarships actually, which are offered by France to Indian students, and they are published regularly on the website of the Embassy of France in India. So I think thousands of students every year, they go to France from India and they end up settling there. They find jobs in French companies, and well, they stay back,
Right.
and there is work visa and long stay visa, everything is possible. So that's not an issue in that way. So really, if somebody really wants to go to France or Europe, it's possible.
Right, right, right. And so was the case in Korea as well, Sowjanya? Like, did you get a chance to settle in there, or it wasn't the case?
So in my case, once I was done with my course in Korea for 2 years and I moved to India and I started working in India,
Mm.
I thought the possibilities of me going back to the country is done, but I definitely wanted to stay there and work. So while I think I was doing my advanced level, my final levels in the language in Korea, I did get the opportunity uh, to work for one of the companies over there, Hyundai.
Mm.
Um, it did come up, but I couldn't take it up because my family wanted me back. So I had to come back. But the thing is, as I was working in Bombay, it so happened that one of my professors from who had taught me previously in Korea reached out to me and asked me if I would be interested. And like, there's a scholarship that the Korean government was offering. It's called there's this program called the Korea Foundation. It's a really large institute that offers scholarships to students worldwide. And this particular professor of mine was, she inquired if I'd like to go back to Korea and do this research and be paid by the Korean government for doing this research. Um, so yes, the Korean government also has plenty of opportunities for people who want to come to Korea, study further about the language, culture, even do their PhD researches and stuff. It's that way. It's very, very extensive, and I would say it's readily available for anyone and everyone who's really keen on it. But in terms of work, I would say off late, in the last few years. Um, while the work visa does exist, the laws have become very strict on who they decide to give that work permit to, because like I said, recently there's been an influx of foreigners coming to study in Korea, and not all of them want to stay there, just keeping like their career and profession in mind. They just want to stay there because they love the country, but they may not be qualified enough. So I think they've seen enough cases of that where foreigners are just applying, but if it comes down to speaking the language, they have not really leveled up or done anything, like not worked on themselves that way. So no, you'll have to be really convincing and really good at what you do to land a job in Korea at this point. But then again, if you do get in through one of these scholarships and you study in Korea extensively, you do a PhD over there and you've enrolled for one of their programs, then the chances of getting to work in the university that you've studied in or get recommended by your professors to another institute of sort academically, I think there's a high chance that you could get to settle in Korea. Um, Other company wise, I don't think it's that easy at the moment. It might change in the future, but not right now.
Right, right. Okay, and what?
Sorry, I would also like to add, like if you have a degree from France itself or you have a European degree, it becomes easier to, settle there, because by then they expect that, you're kind of familiar with the work culture, with the country culture. So it's easier. that way. So if you are really keen on moving to a different country, I would suggest that you do your degree there itself.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but as in fact, as you both pointed it out, right, that how it is, different for different countries. Like for UK, like until last year, there was no policy of work visa, and last year only they introduced the policy of work visa. So I think I can gauge that it's the same in case of foreign language as well, the settlement opportunities as far as any career is concerned or any job is concerned. I think it would vary from the country to country. Right. Sajana, what do you think are certain skill sets or personality traits that one needs to have, or prerequisites that one should have in order to thrive in this particular field, or just to thrive in, a career which is related to foreign language?
I would say listening. Um, I would say if you're working as a translator, interpreter, um, you really need to have the ability to listen patiently, because when you're working as an interpreter, you're trying to make two parties, two people understand each other, and it is your utmost, like it's your duty. It's so important that you make sure that the message is delivered across correctly, and you definitely need to be able to have like be attentive towards like the nuances of both the languages and the cultures, so you don't accidentally offend the other party by saying something. So that for all of that, I would say interest in the culture is really, really important. You need to know what you're getting into. You need to know that everyone's not the same. um, you really have to be aware about the like inherent personalities. Like something about Koreans that Koreans themselves admit to is that they're always in a hurry. They're very impatient. They always need to get to places really fast. They want their food fast. They just don't have the time to have like patient conversations and lounge around. They're just not like that. It's not in them. So that kind of mindset applies to the work culture as well. You cannot expect them to patiently try to like listen to the other party and stuff. You will have to learn to adapt to both sides basically. So in for things like that, say a Korean person that you're translating for is in a rush, but the other person is offended by the fact that they are in a rush, but you kind of need to be sure that you're aware of this, and you've made it aware to the other party as well, and you're there to mediate the situation. um, that is so yeah, patience, listening, um, and just be a little more aware of the nuances of the culture. um, I would say that. And another thing, like skill wise, I would say is sometimes the language alone might not be enough. um, you would need to specialize in something. I had to, initially, it was okay for me when I started working in the BPO call center scene. But as I was advancing in my career, I had to quickly, adapt to any one particular field, because within translation, it could be legal, it could be medical, academic, or technical, So you need to be very clear about where your specialty is, what it is that you can offer. So you can't just take up any and all translation, like if you don't have the background in it. So yes, be really good at the language, and also pick the field that you can really contribute to
Yeah.
and stick to it.
Interesting. So technically, foreign language is something which can go handy with literally any specialization, is what I'm understanding.
Yes, anything, as long as you've made up your mind and you stick to it. Yeah.
Stuti, would you like to add any particular skill set or trait to the list which you feel is important?
I think Sowjanya has put it really well. She's included almost everything. So I don't think I want to add anything over here. But yeah, you have to like really ensure that you are good with the language. You have to ensure that you progress with it, and also you have to know how to use it with your field and with the career that you want to go forward with. So that's it.
Okay. So last question. Feel free if you want to skip this question, but this is one question that comes from almost all the students that okay, even if we pick this career up, what are the income aspects? What are the how does monetization bit go in it? So would you like to disclose it? If not, we're completely okay with skipping this as well, as you guys say.
Well, I would not like to talk about my salary directly,
Sure.
but then, of course, I would like to say that, it pays well, I think. It
Yeah,
pays a little
just
better.
help us
In
understand
fact, if you don't,
initially how it is, and then once you advance in it, then how it goes.
could you repeat, please?
Yeah, like initially, how are the packages or whatever, how, so initially how it is, and once you start advancing in your career, to what level it can go, if you could just help
Uh,
understand that bit.
okay. So
Mm.
I think perhaps Sowjanya would be able to answer that question better. But then I just want to say that, if you know foreign language, your prospects increase and so does the salary, so does your packages, because then you are an asset in more than one way to the company where you're working at.
Mm.
So definitely, and you're in a better position to actually negotiate the package you want as well, because, you bring this thing with you. So yeah, that's it from my side. Perhaps Sowjanya would like to add something.
Yeah. So, Jana, would you want to add anything to this bit?
Yes. So I'll just be clear, the pay is great. The pay is great. Um, and you should know for a fact that the pay is great. So in I've been working for the last 4 years, on and off. Some have been full-time jobs and some have been I've worked as a consultant for some startups and companies like that. And I've obviously in that process attended quite a few interviews as well. Now, in those interviews, I've had some companies definitely try to sneak their way out of it and try to offer me something that's much too less for what I know this profile requires. This profile, can get, right. um, you should, first of all, I would like to tell anyone and everyone who's pursuing a foreign language that is in demand, know your worth. You will definitely find a company that pays well. So if someone's trying to tell you, oh no, we only pay like, I don't know, 20-25K a month and that's all it is, that's not what it is. It's not.
Yeah.
So know that you can always demand more, and if there's a company that's trying to do that to you, skip it.
Okay.
Go, just don't do it, don't take it.
Yeah.
Because just learn to work. This is what I've told myself, that I should only um, work at companies that recognize the value of a foreign language and respect the fact and appreciate that someone's taken the time to go abroad, settle in a foreign country. They've put in a lot of expenses and like a lot of money has gone into the whole process of it, and they're bringing the culture, they're bringing it all with them, so it deserves that kind of respect. So yes, the pay is definitely great. um, from what I've seen generally in the market for Korean language, Korean, Japanese, and Mandarin as well, it starts at 10 lakhs per annum.
Great.
So don't panic. You, if you're doing a foreign language, you will get paid well. Just know that you'll be paid well, and expect the same. That's it.
But thank you both of you guys for taking up this question. I mean, the reason that I asked this question in the first place because there is a lot of misconception and a lot of myths going around the fact that a career in foreign language doesn't pay well. But I think the way you did put it across, the fact that people are investing so much in it, not just learning the language, but um, putting time and expenses and also learning about culture and everything. So it makes sense. Like the ROI definitely makes sense. Right. And any language that you guys would suggest are like in extreme demand right now that people should consider going ahead with?
Well,
Yeah.
no, because yeah, the demand. Well, it really depends. Where do you want to go? It really depends on you. So, if you are starting with the goal of getting a job in a particular area, in a particular country, So I think a lot of research goes from your end, which language you want to study. So that is what determines the demand of the language in that way, because it's upon you. If you want to go to Korea, you have to know Korean. You want to go to China, you have to know Mandarin. You want to go to Japan, you know how it goes.
Yeah,
So, well, it really depends on the career path that you're choosing.
yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
so I think that makes sense from my perspective. And if you're starting it as a hobby, as it
Hmm.
was in my case, then you need to research later, actually, after you have your certification, which way do you want to go.
Right, right. Okay. And any moment tips for students who are going to pick up foreign language as a career, or even if they wish to start it as a hobby? So any tips for them? It goes for the both of
Um,
you. Anyone can pick up.
yeah,
Yeah.
my like I said, it's it gives a lot of joy. It gives a lot of satisfaction to kind of put in that effort into learning a language, and then along the way you will see the progress when it's something so simple. Like for me, it was something so simple that I went to Korea not knowing much. I knew how to read, but I couldn't speak it. Like I obviously didn't know the grammar, um, or any of that. But say a month in of starting my classes, I could go to restaurants and order my food, and I could go to a coffee shop and tell them specifically what kind of drink I wanted. And I could, like I said, I was a vegetarian, so I could go to restaurants and say, "Oh, no meat, please," or "No fish, please," or "I don't eat this." And I would do that, or I would go like grocery shopping and like ask like the lady over there, like, "Oh, like where do you have like spinach or something?" But these small, small things gave me so much satisfaction at the end of the day that I was like, I can say this. And, I was always in awe of the fact that the words were coming out of my mouth, that it was actually happening. Um, and that's such a unique kind of joy to have. It's so wonderful. I'm still shocked with the fact that I can speak the language, that's happening. Um, so I would say learn to enjoy it. Yes, the money is important, but if you only give the money as the end goal and try to learn the language, you will not be as invested in it, and it's not necessary that you may pick up every aspect of the language and you get to learn about a new culture and actually, like, grow as a person. You might not get to do that if money is your end goal. So definitely enjoy the process. As Stuti mentioned earlier, keep an open mind, and do not, in the process, at least in the initial stages when you're learning the language, do not always try to compare the foreign language that you're learning with your mother tongue or the language that you're comfortable in. They're going to be different, and it's not going to be comfortable. So just realize that this is new and this is how it is, and it doesn't have to be the same the way it is back at home. um, so yeah, that would be my tip for anyone who wants to start this.
Hmm. Right. And Stuti, any tips from your end?
Well, it gives you immense pleasure when you start understanding the language, whatever level it might be. You start understanding, you can say a few words and the person can understand you. It gives you so much pleasure when that happens. And I just think this just came to me actually. I was with a friend and we were traveling. I think it was in Portugal, and we were talking. So it was just a breakfast and we were talking. And of course, there was Hindi, there was English in between, a few words of French as well, because the friend spoke French also. And this woman, she comes up to us and she's like, "Excuse me, if you don't mind, which language are you speaking?" And we were like, "We are from India, so it's Hindi and a little bit of English." And she was amazed. She was like, "You are speaking three languages at once, and the way you switch, especially Hindi and English, we just switch, right?"
Yeah.
And she was amazed that
Mm,
how do you do that?
mm,
So, having a perspective of a person who, uh, for them, it's something really unique. So I think that is also one aspect. And otherwise, it's so much fun.
mm,
When I was in the initial stages of learning, I used to I used to write my diary in French, and they were really simple sentences, present tense, very simple words. Now I look back, I read it, I'm like, oh God, this is so simple. What have I written? This is so basic. But now, being at this level, it also makes you happy that I've grown so much, I've progressed so much. I've lived the culture, I've lived the life, I've spoken to natives, I got a bit of accent from them as well. So,
Yeah.
that's what makes you really happy. So I think it's the element of satisfaction,
Mm.
uh, which learning a foreign language brings you.
Yeah, yeah. So, thank you so much for contributing to this a completely new dimension and a completely new perspective about foreign languages. Thank you for sparing this much time, and thank you for readily agreeing to come and talk about this particular topic. And I'm sure people, the students who are going to watch it, there's so much information that you guys have given, and thank you on their behalf as well. I'd say, and I'm genuinely like grateful for you guys sparing this kind of time.
Thank you so much, Bhumika. Thank you so much for inviting, for having us actually. And it's been a great experience for me, sharing my experience and my thoughts about this career option. I hope it will be helpful to the
It
students.
surely will be, surely will. Because I think they end up asking these questions, and I'm this inquisitive person when it comes to careers in general. So I think more than them, I am taking up these questions. Like I was more curious to know about all of this.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I feel very important now that somebody wants to know all this from me. It was so much fun. It was so much fun that we just got to chit chat about this and recall our experiences from back then as well. And it was just nice. I'm glad that there are people out there who want to know this, and I would be really happy if it was useful to students and people feel a little braver, stronger to take this step in their life. It'll be rewarding, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure like
Also, like,
go ahead, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, that, we are at a point where we can help others,
Hmm.
where our experiences can be of some help to others, and it can kind of inspire them to take up the languages that we love
Definitely.
respectively. So that's a great thing.
Yeah, and I'm sure people would also want to reach out to you personally.